say a big thank you to OrangeBoy for hosting this webinar, and know that you can find all kinds of information about targeted email marketing on the OrangeBoy website, and if you see them on Twitter. If you have questions for me at any point ever about library marketing, you can contact me through Twitter or Snapchat. My handle is right there on the screen. I also have info about email messaging on my blog. You'll see the URL there. Or just Google library content marketing. My blog is usually the first one that pops up. Finally, I would not be a very good marketer if I didn't market my own library to you. Really fantastic social media specialist who's doing great stuff, in particular in Twitter and Snapchat, and we just started with Snapchat, so I would love it if you followed us and then gave us some feedback about what I would love to hear what other libraries are doing and what you think can be done on Snapchat. During the webinar, about or ask questions, you can use the hashtag library marketing. And in targeted messaging, because you're here this afternoon, guessing that you're still wondering why we do this, worth the investment of our time and resources, and my answer is a big yes. With targeted email marketing works libraries, so in the next half hour or so, tell me how I came to know that. Messaging is going to help you to get to know your customers better. From your cardholder interactions with your messages, you can use data to understand how your customers are using the library, materials they want and need, and this is really valuable data that you can't get anywhere else. And using your email messages, the better library's relationship is going to be with your cardholder. Some marketing, we do this thing that we call throwing spaghetti at the wall. You that phrase a lot of our for-profit brands friends too, so they're just as guilty as we are, but we're stuff out the door, trying to get our message in front of as many people as possible. And it sticks to someone, just like threw a plate of spaghetti at the wall, some of it would stick to the wall. Target messaging is a little counterintuitive to the traditional marketing brain, but it is actually more efficient. This focused method for the right message in front of the right people at the right time. This is for the people who really want to hear it. Have a rudimentary understanding of your email audience. So I want you to think about what you know about your cardholders right now. The way to approach getting to know your cardholders is to actually divide them up by how they use their card. So OrangeBoy client, they break your cardholders out for you into groups that are called clusters. There are 10 OrangeBoy clusters. Each of them has a name. Page turners, for example, are people that use the library to borrow adult print material. Audiophiles cluster, and they use the library's physical audiobook collection. Stories are adults that check out children's materials. Use the library's digital collections from their personal devices. So the names are pretty self-explanatory. If you're not an OrangeBoy customer right now, you can still divide your cardholders by usage in a similar fashion, or divide your cardholders up by their age, by their location. You can divide by where they live or what library branch they visit most frequently. How I'm going to refer to these categories of cardholders as clusters. So when I say that, you'll know what I mean. We'll learn more about some of OrangeBoy's other clusters as we move through the webinar. But libraries, target messages will fall into one of three main categories: collections, services, and programs. And the definitions are up there on the screen. They're pretty self-explanatory. Collect, program, promote, or anything that stuff people can check out. Services promote things like if you have a personalized reading recommendation service, if you add a drive-through window to one of your branches, there's an update to the Overdrive app, you have all that stuff falls under service promotions. And are just imagine story times, author visits, book clubs, that kind of thing. Remember to simple. When you targeted marketing via email, I want you to just pick one of 3 categories. For my collections marketing was the logical place to start. I really believe every library can it by starting with collections marketing. So I want to take a second to make my case for starting your library targeted email in the collections marketing category. Libraries should be doing collections marketing for reasons, and one is budget. Check. Find your library spends a significantly higher amount on collections versus programming. So my library, the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County, the difference is pretty huge. We spend $175,000 a year on programs and $8.6 million a year on physical and digital collections. So when you look at it that way, there isn't any contest. I feel pretty secure in my desire to support my collections department. And I think we can focus on collections is because it's what the cardholders really want. This research that I can find is from the Pew Institute. It was published last September. 60% of people who have a library card have borrow print books. 50% of library card holders sit, read, study, or consume some kind of media. Only 18% attend a class, a program, or lecture. So for me, the difference between 66% and 17% is no contest. And just to check, I took a quick look at the stats for our library here in Cincinnati. 6.5 million visits total to all of our branches. 500,000 visitors attend a program. By cost, our circulation for the year was 18 million items. So get 6.5 million visitors, 1.5 million program attendance, and 8 million items in circulation. That is a huge difference. And the other point I want to make is that most libraries, mine included, are doing a lot of program promotions right now. So even with that marketing that we're already doing, there's this disparity in how we market and our card holders are really using our facility. We need to support collections. I have one more analogy to drive home my point, and this comes from before I came to library marketing. I was a broadcast journalist for 20 years. I worked at a local television station here in Cincinnati, and every news director would bring in a consultant. It was to tell us how to create our newscast and to make it better so we would get more viewers. Proud journalists believe that we're delivering the best quality product to our viewers. Consultants would come in with focus group data, and the focus groups would tell us the reason they watch the newscast is for the weather. King, it was always king. And for life, your collections is king. I think we take it for granted that our cardholders know that we have books. So we just need to stop doing that. As you can tell, a huge fan of collections marketing, but I do want to spend a few moments talking about those other 2 categories of targeted messaging, service and promotions, because there's some success in those 2 categories, and I think there is a value to doing targeted marketing, especially if it ties into your library strategy. So I want to begin with the series of 3 messages that we did last fall. This is going to fall under the service promotions category. And this is promoting a new reading recommendation service we have called Book Hookup. This is what the email looked like on the right. We stacked email 3 to 3 separate clusters. So the message went to page turners. As you can see, we had an open and click-through rate that was pretty good. And just so that you know where industry averages stand, according to OrangeBoy, the industry average open rate for library messages is about 19%. So the message was also twice that amount. We message a week later to transitionals. In the OrangeBoy system, transitionals are people who use both physical and digital content from the library, so they have their foot in both worlds. To transitionals actually got a higher open rate. The thing that happened, though, was these 2 messages garnered 500 requests from personalized reading recommendations. This was successful. We actually had to take a break from our marketing schedule so so our librarians could get caught up on those requests. Prior to email, just so you know, we did do some marketing that was not email-based. We had signs in our branches, and we had a slide in the carousel on our website and a special new bar on our website. So we were trying to just kind of out of comparison see how many people picked the fact that we had a new hookup list, just those two things, and the requests were just kind of trickling in, like maybe 25 a week. So we did the email, and then it just exploded. Had our breakdown, we sent a message a third time to our dependables cluster. Dependables are library super users. They just basically use everything. They're all in as far as library goes. A particular email got an even higher open rate, and the thing was we got another 400 plus requests for cardholders for recommendations just from dependables. So really, the most valuable pieces of information I got out of this was because I would have guessed that dependables don't really need reading recommendations because they're so immersed in using the library. I would have assumed they know everything that's in the collection. They know how to find the new arrivals. They know how to find books, authors that they love. They wouldn't need reading recommendations, but I found out that I was wrong. So a valuable insight that you're going to gain when you start doing targeted email messaging. Another message that we did is this one. We sent March, and it was promoting Mango Languages, which is one of our language databases. We have our Bright Futures cluster, and those are teens 18 to 17 who visit the library frequently, and sent it to the Staying Connected cluster, and those are people that use the library to access public computers. And I have a confession to make at this point, which I really had absolutely no idea who used the Mango database and who would be interested in using it. I just basically had to take a big, old, educated guess. It's pretty good open and click-through rate, but the usage. Mango had 663 new sessions in the 30 days after this message, which translates to a 71% increase. That made our collections development manager extremely happy. A targeted email messaging strategy, I think, as the program is really teachable or interesting, and the message is really targeted. Experience has been that this has been a really difficult ball to hit out of the park. We did one really memorable success story, which you're looking at on the screen. One of our anniversary party in March sent this message to cardholders. We sent it twice, actually. One time 3 weeks before the program, and a second time as a reminder 1 week before the program. Open and click-through rates for both of those messages combined, the open was 36%, but we had less than a 1% click-through rate, which is pretty abysmal, and I was frankly alarmed that this program was going to be a flop. But of the party, 400 people came. That was about twice what the branch manager had told me she was expecting. In conversation with her before the party, I'd asked her to just kind of survey people subjectively and ask them how they heard about it. The people, she said later, told her they knew the party was happening because they received the email. So the thing learned is the click rate is not always an indication of whether the program is going to be successful. What I want to make with this one is that this was part of an overall marketing campaign. So we didn't just send an email. We marketed also with signs in the branches, with the librarians. We had a slide again on our homepage of our website. So it wasn't just the email, but the email was the big crux for getting people into the party. Now that I've showed you how successful some targeted email messaging has been in my library and got you all excited, I want to get started right now. Targeted marketing might seem complex at the beginning, but it helps if you keep it simple and think like a scientist. I want to approach it methodically, do it step just like you would if you were conducting a scientific experiment. So step, as we mentioned earlier, is separating your cardholders into clusters. To print out a sheet with all of my clusters, and I put it in a cubicle right in front of my face so I can glance at it frequently, both while I'm creating email messages and other marketing as well, because I just like to keep those cardholders top of mind. Pick a cluster that you're going to begin with. And get really good at messaging that one cluster before you move on to a second one. So the easy thing to do is to check your library strategic goals, find a cluster that closely relates to those goals, and start that one. Step one is going to be to tie some simple goals to the cluster. So ideally, those goals are going to be part of your library strategic initiatives. When the library started messaging, one of our strategic goals was an increase in circulation of all items. Now, I think that's kind of a wide goal for our messaging strategy, so I decided to start by focusing just on increasing digital circulation, because it's an area where our collection could see a large amount of growth. Remember, you just want to stay simple. If you set your goal, you're going to create a hypothesis. We hypothesized we could convince people to check out digital items by to the ease in which they could do so without ever having to come to a physical branch. So if we sent them a message that had direct links to items in the collection, they would come out because it would be super convenient. Once it's time for your email experiment. We did to start by sending several emails a month to library holders, linked to items in the catalog that might be of interest to them. Super simple. Find success as getting above industry open and click-through rates on emails, and increasing holds on we were highlighting in the emails by absolutely any amount. It was a very simple approach. It made the whole process seem less intimidating, and I recommend that's how you start. Keep it very simple. We would recommend that you start even smaller, and here's what I mean. Our library started messaging in earnest in January of 2015, and we sent 5 emails that month. Emails were sent to what I would call a wide targeted audience. So that was a couple of clusters put together that made an average audience of 77,000 cardholders, which relates to about 13% of our total cardholder numbers. Frankly, I think that's many. I recommend that you focus on a cluster or an email audience that's about 5% of your total cardholders. So that's about 25,000 cardholders. But what 5% of your total cardholders, whatever it is, that's where you should start. You rates. As I said, OrangeBoy ran some stats. Open for libraries right now is 19%. At the time, again, there weren't any libraries that I knew of that were doing targeted email messaging, so there was no industry standard. So I used industry standard for educational organizations, and that was a 22% open rate and a 3% click-through rate. So we were below that for our open rate, but above it for our click-through rate. We just decided to stay small, and we really just wanted to build momentum. In February, we sent 10 messages. Our open improved by 4 points, finally got above that industry average. In a month's time, we were starting to engage our customers more effectively. It's learning what it is your audience wants. I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of stats. I just want to show you what happens when you're collecting data on your cardholders and you really start to get in tune with what you want. This year is the latest month for which we have figures. We sent 18 messages. Had 34% open, which is significantly higher than when we first started messaging. We had a 6% click-through rate, which is double from when we started. And those figures make me really happy. There has been a significant shift in how I think. I really no longer set much store by the click-through rates. Now I'm always measuring my success by the outcome of the email itself. So, for instance, if it's a collection email, does circulation of the item increase? Higher than it was last month. The program email, did people come to the program? For sessions, we look at did use of the service increase after the email. know to measure those things in the beginning, but now, and I'm telling you so that you won't make the same beginner's mistakes that I did. And click-through rates are lovely. They're ego-boosting, but I think you should focus on the effectiveness of the email and making your cardholders take a positive action. So measure in April, like I said, we sent 18 messages. 17 we were able to label as effective. 12 of those messages were collection-based, and an increase in circulation of 144% for the items we highlighted in the emails. As you're going to be able to refine your objectives. What I'm doing at my library, again, as I said, we no longer started to worry about open and click-through rates, trying to increase usage of our library, whether it was circulation, visit branches, or use of services. Decide how you will measure your success. Mine is that you just say, what are the library's strategic goals? And can you leverage your ability to target emails to make goals reality? That's really the whole point of targeted email messaging. Because once you have your objectives and your goals and your hypothesis in place, no matter how simple or complex they might be, there's time to experiment with factors that make your message more successful. Things like audience, how many people you send it to, when you send it to, the time of day you send it, the day of the week, subject line says, what the text says, all that stuff has an impact on how effective your message can be. So spend some time figuring out what audience wants. You can with the who wants it and when they want it, and do really fun experimentation. Our libraries seems kind of scary. How when to send a message. So I always start by trying to get inside the life of my audience. I think cardholders are doing during the day, and also what I have seen, the research I've seen about the digital behavior of most consumers. I keep an eye on the latest research. So we started some research studies and looked at when social media activity was at its highest peak during the day and started sending messages during that time. So when we started, that was an hour. People were getting on social media and getting on email over their lunch hour. But recent studies have shown that social media activity and email activity increases starting at 3 or 4 in the afternoon and building through midnight. So it makes sense to take advantage of that window of time in terms of email. Our messages between 7 and 11 p.m. on a Monday or a Thursday, because I find that the time period does really well. Before noon and on weekends don't really do well for us. Now that changed in 6 months. This is why it's really important to track your messages and shifts. When you're making results, you are going to be able to see what the best time of day and best day of the week is for your audience. Conversely, you're going to be able to see which are the worst days of the week at times of day. You're also going to get a sense of the maximum audience size for your messages. So just speaking, like I said, the more targeted the email, the more effective it'll be. I think a small audience is better. At that tipping point, just be around 25,000 or less email subscribers. Again, that's 5% of our total cardholder population. So if I have an email that resonates with that number of people, then I'm usually hitting my mark. Try to be all things to people in one email, you become less effective. So stay focused, stay focused. The more you send, the more you'll have, not only about when to send the messages and to whom, but what your cardholders really like to see in the message. So here's an example of that. Months of our library starting targeted emailing, we in our collections marketing. Whenever it's a message with items in the collection, people went crazy. So we had a hypothesis. If we send messages with the new emails in our collection, holds and subscriptions will increase because people want the new stuff. To what the What's New series. We want to pick 3 new collection items from each of these 3 categories on your screen. We put a in OrangeBoy, and we just go in and insert the 3 newest items in that category and direct links to the catalog. Here's finished. This is a message I sent last Wednesday to in traditionals clusters to promote our new ebooks in our collection. Now, particular email, put in a lot of clickable links. Red tease text you see at the top is a link. That's a clickable link. The word summer reading will take people straight to our summer reading page, which just started on June 1st. The book title will be the book in our collection so you can place a hold. So I have a lot of ways that my cardholders can interact with the message. They don't really have to search very way to interact with us. And at the time we built it, my house has some coding experience. Now what I do is go in and copy and paste it. So half an hour to create this message. And we fit circulation and holds increase these target email messaging. Just so you know, this particular message, we had an increase of circulation of 109% after I sent this email. 7 copies of these books were checked out. And my algorithm for doing this is before I write down the number of checkouts or holds on each title, and then for 3 days after I send the message. Because if someone really wants to interact with this message, I'm going to do so within the first 3 days of receiving it. And you start seeing engagement and interaction with the email decrease, and it's really not worth your time anymore. So I track holds for 3 days after I send the message. I have another video, What's New Music for April email, and I sent this one to transitionals and Freegal users. I have them embed links, the red tease text at the top, the header, and cover and title, that selection on Hoopla or Freegal. The algorithm that I use, I look at the number of downloads for 3 days after I send this email. This message resulted in 172 downloads of the highlighted songs. That was actually an increase of 80 downloads from March. The magic in targeted messaging is getting to know the tastes of your cardholders. I create this music message every month. I feel a little bit better at picking the music that my cardholders are going to respond to. And so you know your cardholders much better through email messaging. For this, you need to step out of your silo a little bit. Our buddies in collection development help us quite frequently. We're really lucky. They're raw from us. So I developed a relationship with them. They send us ideas and booklets they think will resonate with readers because they know what people are checking out. A real example of this is a book list for kids that we did last fall. One of our collection developers emailed us. That publishers were releasing children's books. Yes. Those creatures that live in the lakes that kind of look like a bear. So we have, and then we decided to create the book list. We had a collection developer to put together a list of books about Yetis from our collection. And we had a website with the links to all the books on it. We had social media posts. We linked to this special news page on the front page of our website. We decided to send this e-blast to bedtime stories. And this e-blast is what really gave the impetus to for this particular book list. Circulating the books on the Yeti list increased 9% in the 3 weeks following the email. The development department really helps us in other ways. They create a likes for us every month and sending us trends and topics to think about for collection marketing. They know collection backwards and forwards. They know which books are coming in. They know what's popular with readers. They can trend, and they can help you fully showcase it. So if one is strategic initiative for your library is to increase circulation, this is a really good idea. Ask yourself, what I want to learn next about my cardholders? That we're trying to crack right now is branch program promotions. Big summer experiment. We're sending email messaging to home locations, promote summer learning programs at those locations. They're specific to students in terms of age and interests. Some are going to less than 100 people, which is super insane. This is some of the targeted emailing we've ever done. The goal is to increase program attendance. The first program that we promoted actually happens today. I think it's actually happening right now as we speak, so I don't have results, but we'll see how it goes. I'll probably write about it on my blog at the end of the summer. The point is to never be satisfied with your efforts. If some work, like not really had very good luck in the past with program emails, we read it in a different way. Keep trying new things. You never know when you're going to stumble on the marketing beans. Bouncing around in your head is the thing as too many email messages. No. Never have to worry about having too many email messages. So far, our library has not hit any limits. People learning from us, as long as we deliver value, our emails are welcome, and so will yours be. Example, that email showed you earlier that was showcasing our ebooks, that to 19,000 total customers. We 6 unsubscribes, 6 out of 1,000. That's a subscribe rate at 0%, and that's how it's been for all of our emails. You're always sending messages to different people. As long as they're targeted and relevant, it doesn't matter how many you send. You should be doing targeted email messaging. It'll give you visible data about who your cardholders are, what and interact with your library. It strengthens your relationship between the cardholder and your library. It can reach your library's strategic goals. And the library provides a value to your cardholders. It keeps you timed, and your cardholders are going to remember that you're sending them information and services that they need. You're going to focus on one of the 3 main message categories. Obviously, I recommend collections because I think it's where the majority of your library budget is likely focused. And because your cardholders, generally speaking, got library cards so they could check out books and stuff with a small audience, and on getting them to interact with your message. One audience, add another. As your data, refine objectives, keep writing, and keep an open mind. Do lots of tracking, and open yourself what the goal should be. You can visit the OrangeBoy website. If you click on the news at the top of that website, you're going to be connected to their blog. They have lots of great articles. Libraries are finding success with email marketing and data. I targeted messaging on my website. I talk about it a lot on Twitter and Snapchat. I'm going to be taking this presentation and turning it into a blog so we can talk more about it in the coming weeks. Again, please follow the library and let me know what you think of our Snapchat because I'm really interested in what other libraries have to say. I'd love to open it up for questions and hear what you want to know about targeted email messaging.
Have here, Angela, is do you require email recipients to opt in, or do you create clusters from all patron records?
First part of this question, and then OrangeBoy can talk about the clusters that are created by OrangeBoy. So they can talk a little bit more about how that process happens on their end. Mine has an out procedure. So when you sign up for a library card, you have the option to give us your email. You don't have to, but we find most people do because beyond getting the marketing messages, we also send them notices on hold. We send information on when something is going to be overdue, on funds, and other things. So there's of value beyond the marketing messages. But once we send the marketing messages to them, the unsubscribe rate, like I said, remains at 0%. They don't seem to mind being marketed to by, which is, at for-profit brothers and sisters are probably drooling when they hear me talk about that, because clearly not the case for libraries are an exception to that rule. So we have an opt-out part of our library. And maybe, OrangeBoy, you could talk about how the clusters are created within your dashboard.
The platform is essentially a data integration tool, which your and other library resources that patrons use, and that on a single web-based platform. On there, that gives algorithms that are embedded in that to look at different views that are exhibited by library customers. So as Angela was saying, what Savannah does is looks for patterns of behavior, how often, the frequency of somebody accessing certain types of resources at the library, and places into these categories called clusters based off of the utilization of different resources. A page turner, as Angela was saying, is a group of customers whose primary activity is coming to the library to access those print books for adults. A bedtime story, parents with children who are accessing large volumes of children's material, driven by having that child in the home and the need for getting children's material. So it does look for those patterns and usage, and it is updated live. So as the library submits data to Savannah on a weekly basis, the clusters update, and the clusters are dynamic in that people can move around to different clusters based off of their utilization behavior. So let me give you an example. A grandparent who might be a page turner through most parts of the year might have a grandchild who comes and stays in their home for the summer. Then they're taking that grandchild to the library. So their behavior might shift to a bedtime story because they're being driven by having that child in the home. Therefore, they start to and consume. So the clusters, as I said, people can move to different categories as changes, and it's used in a way to really be targeted and precision-based in your email marketing.
This is Sandy Swanson with OrangeBoy. You can create your own clusters. There are all types of filters, with the been integrated onto your site. So if you want to identify, for example, bedtime stories, but you want a geographic focus, maybe you have a children's author coming to one of your branches, you can even make that cluster even more specific by geographic focus on it by selecting their home library or a zip code. You can use age filters. So there's lots of ways to really tailor and customize these audiences for different purposes.
Jennifer's comment, being from a small library, my first thought is how expensive it is to use OrangeBoy for targeted marketing. Our services are scalable to different size libraries, so there are ways that we can work with individual libraries to design your needs for the services that we offer. So we'd be happy to talk with you about that, Jennifer.
Mm-hmm. So a question about the email templates and how Angela's creating her templates.
My has experience, so he created the template for us for the what's new message for just like the Yeti book list. So that is what I different kinds of messages that we send. One is that template-based message, and the other I call graphic-based, which is an example of it. It's just a big graphic, and the whole graphic is a clickable link to the book list on the site. And then a pretty easy thing. I mean, OrangeBoy's dashboard is very customer friendly, and really the first time we did it, we just kind of went through the steps of creating an email, inserting the graphic. You get a link, just like you would if you're used to using Word documents or Microsoft Office emailing or even WordPress. It's kind of set up in the same way. Links are set up the same way. You can change fonts. You can change, bold, change color. It's set up exactly the same way as Word. So it isn't a difficult process to learn at all.
This is for us. Does OrangeBoy replace email services like Constant Contact and MailChimp? And yes. If you think of those types of services being embedded in Savannah, essentially that enhances those types of services with the ability to use the targeted emails that are in so you can use these without having to move and export data from your ILS over to like a MailChimp, for example. All of that is on one single platform. So you utilize all of that integrated data to really be targeted in who we're sending your messages to. On the back end of that, you can then use that data to evaluate your message. So those who receive this message actually do at the library following the receiving message. So that is the benefit of the platform. So it could be a contact or a MailChimp.
That some people maybe custom lists that they've created. We had one library compile a list of young professionals that invited to different events, and they wanted to integrate their email. We started using Savannah, and so we were able to import those records, and we can create custom tags on those records. So those were tagged, and they could select them and then add to it and build upon that future email. Some others are, tagging. There was a question about creating other clusters like business users. If you have a list started, we have another example of that would be educators or teachers, and people have compiled some of these lists. And so they're integrating their email. They start importing that and tagging that as well. And we could even integrate some of your support group activity if that's an interest as well. So friends groups, your volunteers, and even contacting and reaching out to your donors.
That answers the question. For have you ever seen customers who don't fit into specific clusters?
Question about development office, and I don't know if you can address that. My understanding is they're probably not using Savannah right now, but maybe you can respond.
Question. Can you read that question to me, because I don't see it on my chat?
Does your development office also use OrangeBoy, or are those communications kept separate?
By development office, do they mean like our fundraising arm, foundation? No. Yes and no. They don't have all the messaging for them. So when there is a message that we have two fundraising arms, the Library Foundation and the Friends of the Public Library. Actually, we have three, because we have for the east side of our area, they have their own friends group. So different fundraising arms, and when they want to send emails, they our marketing team or my team, and we'll get a message for them. And we do use Savannah for those. One that I've had a little less with doing emails for. So for the foundation, I don't really know who the donors are. Foundation, we're talking about creating one of those emails that Sandy was just discussing, of just messaging so that we can just target those people, because now we're just sending those foundation emails to everyone. And I have no idea how many of our cardholders are actually members of the foundation. So the use of that email message is in question for me. Once we get I think it's going to be a more effective messaging. The Friends and Atla have given us lists that we have ported into OrangeBoy. We have had some success email on behalf of the Friends, on behalf of Atla, using those targeted lists. Also, for Atla, I send those messages to the people who go to branches that get money from Atla, and I find that to be very effective. So that's a way of using location as a way to get your message. How large of a team it takes to run my particular department? Mm-hmm. Bigger than most, I know. There's myself, 2 content specialists, I have a specialist, and I have 2 graphic artists. In targeted marketing, there are myself and the 2 graphic artists. It's a commitment, the pay, and also it's scalable to your schedule. So part of the scheduling out that you'll have to come up with is not only when is the best time to send a message, but how many messages can I create and run myself into the ground. For me, than it will be for some other people who have other jobs. You know, the marketing and communications are different at every library. I don't have to do all strategic plan stuff. There's a marketing manager who does that. So my time is free to create content, and this falls into that category. So a large number of messages. That might not be necessarily something your library can do on the scale that we do, but the feeling is once you start messaging and you start seeing the results, it's a motivation, and it means that your administration can see as a way to divert time and resources to this particular tactic because it does work.
As you ramped up using Savannah, were there any marketing programs that you discontinued, like print newsletters, news titles, emails, blogs? What do you no longer work?
Yes. We newsletter when I began, and we discontinued that away for the reason we talked about earlier. It was trying to be all things to all people. At the point, I would love to start sending, call them in a newsletter. I would call it a content marketing message. It would be targeted to clusters and would contain a few and a few links to programs that would be of value to that customer, but that's a long way down the road. I don't find that newsletters work very well because, again, you're just trying to do everything for everyone. I think a more targeted approach is more reliable. I think if we got rid of anything, we haven't ever had a blog. We haven't gotten rid of anything, honestly. We may have decreased the amount of posts that we create, but that's all I can think of. This has just been an addition to the marketing tactics that we use.
How do you track messages sent, for instance, to make sure one cluster is getting too many emails or being left out?
The spreadsheet, which you don't want to see because it's kind of scary, but I actually sent a sample care to OrangeBoy that they're going to share with you after the webinar so that you can see what a typical month looks like for us. I have a system, like I said, where I send messages on Mondays and Thursdays. I have to pay attention. I use my Microsoft Outlook calendar to keep what clusters I'm sending to, and I just try to space it out. My general rule is 2 messages to 1 cluster a week is the max, and I put a couple days between each of those messages. In a couple of instances where I have to send them out for whatever reason in 24 hours to the same cluster, 2 different messages, but to the same cluster, and the unsubscribe rates, there's no change. It doesn't go up. So if you have to do that, I don't think it's going to, as long as you're providing valuable content, I don't think you're going to see the any limit to the number of emails that you can send. Just try to space it out, and again, I use my Microsoft Outlook calendar to keep track of what clusters I'm sending to. I have color coding, and I have a whole system. It's kind of crazy.
Just for clarification, what clusters or et cetera did you send the Hoopla free message to?
The music I sent to digitarians and transitionals, and then sent it to people who use Hoopla and Freegal who might not be digitarians or transitionals, and I don't put an age limit on it. And we keep seeing growth in that area. So at this point, I'm not going to put an age limit on it because I don't see a reason to do so. That's a big message. I want to say it goes to the more than the 5% of my cards. I think that's a total cluster, or that's a total email audience of about 33,000. So that's 8% or so of our total holders. So that's a little above the 5% threshold, but it's working. And I prove it using the data, so I just keep doing it. Why, I guess. If then I can mess with the ages. But I think older people and younger people enjoy music just the next, and so I just haven't seen a reason to start putting limits on that particular message yet.
Mm-hmm. Nikki, before you close this session, I just wanted to make one other comment in terms of addressing libraries with maybe small team, really can take advantage of targeted marketing. And one of the ways certainly is to being on a platform, through Savannah or one like that, where the resources of Angela, and she has her companions at other large libraries that are part of the Savannah community, as well as mid-size and even small ways are sharing those successes, like we're doing in webcast today. But it's a community that is very willing to share what's working. People share templates, varying. So those are real benefits in addition to the resources that we can provide in helping you get started and helping you set up some of those emails and help with some of the tracking and the measurement. So those are all tools that are available to you through the Savannah community.
I see that Amy has asked if we use other tools to track messages. OrangeBoy dashboard to be really helpful in terms of tracking. So they're going to tell you how many messages, how many card holders received your message, and then I take the number of people who opened it, and I put the percentages in, or I put the numbers in and get a percentage of people who opened the email, and then the number of clicks that we had on the email divided into the number of people who opened it, and that's my click-through rate. I also use Bitly and sometimes Google Analytics URL tracker to see how many people actually click on individual titles, particularly in those what's new emails. I like to see one title perform better than the other. And I also like to look at, of the people on that title, how many actually placed a hold. So a very rudimentary conversion rate, and Bitly or Google URL tracking to help me create that number.
Another question about how you're matching that to the holds and the circ increase.
Yeah, we use Core, so I can look at the titles before I send the email out, and I can actually see how holds and how there are on the title, and then just keep going into that title over that 3-day period after I send the email, and how that number has increased or decreased. If you use Encore, that's a pretty easy process. What items other libraries use to manage their catalog, so I wouldn't know how to tell you to do that. If you work with your circulation department or your collections department to get you numbers for type you are specifically hiding in your emails, I think that's a great conversation to start having. your emails are only going to help them too. You're helping them market the thing that they're working so hard to create, the collection.
I think that's all the time we have left for today. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to contact us here at OrangeBoy at info@orangeboyinc.com through email. We also have lots of information, as Angela said, on our website and ways to contact us through the website as well. I'm sure the conversation can continue online through the library marketing hashtag, and certainly reach out to Angela through her various social media content, her blog, Twitter, Snapchat, and so on. We'll be following up within a week of today's presentation with a recording so that you have it for your records viewing later or sharing with your colleagues. And we will also share the marketing calendar that Angela had mentioned earlier in the presentation. For attending today, and hope you learned a few takeaways about targeted marketing that you can use at your library.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a